Okay, let's unpack this. We're jumping into Genesis chapter 4 today.
Right. A really foundational chapter.
It takes us right outside the Garden of Eden, you know? We meet the first human family trying to figure things out in this, well, this new world.
Exactly. And it's packed with some pretty intense stories and themes. Things like human nature, jealousy, conflict, consequences. They still hit home, don't they?
Absolutely. So our plan for this deep dive is basically to walk through the narrative piece by piece.
Yeah. Look at the key moments, the conversations that happen, and see how the consequences just ripple outwards.
We want to help you get the core insights, kind of quickly see not just what happens, but maybe get a sense of why it's such a significant story.
Sounds good. So where does it start? Right after Eden.
Pretty much immediately. We're introduced to the first children born to Adam and Eve.
That's Cain and Abel.
Cain, the older one, and Abel, his younger brother. And the text tells us their jobs straight away.
Which is interesting in itself. Cain's a farmer, working the soil.
And Abel is a shepherd. So a key difference right from the get-go.
And that difference plays right into the next big scene, doesn't it? The offerings.
It does. Both brothers bring something to the Lord.
Cain offers some of the fruits of the soil, kind of general maybe?
Whereas Abel brings, and the text specifies this, fat portions from some of the firstborn of his flock. Seems more specific, maybe more valued.
Well, that leads right to the crucial moment. The Lord looks with favor on Abel and his offering.
But, and this is the key, not on Cain and his.
Oof. That rejection or perceived rejection is the spark.
And Cain's reaction is immediate and very human.
Totally. It says he becomes very angry and his face was downcast. You can almost feel that hot flush of anger and disappointment, that sense of unfairness.
That feeling of why him and not me.
Exactly. And what's fascinating is what happens next. God speaks directly to Cain.
Yeah, this conversation is, well, it's critical. The Lord actually questions his anger, asks why his face is downcast.
And then gives him this conditional promise almost.
Mm.
If you do what is right, will you not be accepted?
Which really makes you think, doesn't it? It suggests the problem wasn't just the what of the offering.
Right. Maybe it was the how or the heart behind it. It ties acceptance to action, to doing right.
And then comes that incredibly powerful warning.
Oh yeah, the personification of sin. It's chilling.
Tell us that line again.
The Lord says, sin is crouching at your door. It desires to have you, but you must master it.
Wow. Sin as this, like, predatory thing waiting to pounce.
Yeah, this external force almost that Cain has to actively fight and control. It's a real choice point for him.
A clear warning and a path forward is offered. Master it. But that's not what happens.
Tragically, no. The story moves fast. Cain talks to Abel. Seems like he lures him out.
Suggests they go out to the field together.
And there, while they're out there, Cain acts on that anger he didn't master. He attacks Abel, kills him.
The first murder, just like that. The direct result of unchecked rage, ignoring that warning.
Devastating. And then, the inevitable confrontation. God asks Cain point blank.
Where is your brother Abel?
And Cain's response. It's become so famous, that evasion, that defiance almost.
I don't know. Am I my brother's keeper?
That line just hangs there, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It throws up this huge question about our responsibility for each other. Are we? Aren't we?
A question we're still asking. But the Lord isn't fooled.
Not at all. God reveals he knows. Says Abel's blood is crying out for the ground. Imagine that imagery.
Intense, and then the punishment is laid down.
Cain is cursed from the ground, the very earth he worked, the source of his livelihood.
The ground that drank his brother's blood.
Exactly. It will no longer yield its crops for you. His connection is broken. And more than
It's
that,
to be a wanderer.
a restless wanderer on the earth. Banished, disconnected.
How does Cain take this? It's a heavy sentence.
He cries out, basically. Says the punishment is more than I can bear.
He's afraid, isn't he?
Deeply afraid. Afraid of being driven away. Hidden from God's presence, yeah. But also afraid that out there, as a wanderer, someone will find him and kill him.
Vengeance.
And this fear surprisingly prompts a response from God. It's one of the most fascinating parts, I think. Despite everything, God offers protection.
How?
He promises that anyone who kills Cain will face vengeance 7 times over. It's a shield against that cycle of blood revenge Cain fears.
And the mark. He puts a mark on Cain.
Yes, the Lord put a mark on Cain so that no one who found him would kill him. It's explicitly protective.
So the mark isn't the curse itself. It's a sign of protection within the curse.
Precisely. It's this complex layer of maybe grace even in the midst of judgment and banishment, a sign he's not totally abandoned to human vengeance.
So Cain leaves, banished but marked. What happens to him? Does he just wander forever?
Well, the text says he goes out from the Lord's presence and settles in the land of Nod, which means wandering, interestingly enough, east of Eden.
And does he stay alone?
No. He finds a wife, somehow, has a son, Enoch, and then, remarkably, Cain builds a city.
The first murderer builds the first city mentioned in the Bible.
That's what it says. He names it after his son, Enoch. So you see the beginnings of urban life, of civilization stemming from Cain's line.
That is quite something, and the lineage continues.
Briefly traced, yeah. Through Enoch, Irad, Mehujael, Methushael, down to a man named Lamech.
And Lamech brings in something new too, right?
He does. He takes 2 wives, Ada and Zillah. So polygamy enters the picture here.
And his children seem significant. They develop skills.
Absolutely. Through Lamech's sons, you see the start of specialized trades. Jabal, he's associated with nomadic life, tents, livestock.
Okay.
Jubal, he's the ancestor of musicians, those who play the harp and flute. The arts begin.
Right.
And Tubal-Cain, he's noted as a forger of tools, bronze and iron, metalworking, technology and craft. There's also mention of his sister, Nama.
So civilization is definitely advancing in Cain's line.
Yeah.
Cities, music, technology. But what about the violence? Does it lessen?
Quite the opposite. Lamech takes it to a whole new level.
Oh, so.
He makes this chilling boast to his wives. He basically says he killed a man for wounding him, a young man just for injuring him. It sounds like extreme retaliation.
Way out of proportion.
Totally. And then he directly compares himself to Cain.
What does he say?
He declares, if Cain is avenged 7 times, then Lamech 77 times.
Wow. So he takes that protective measure given to Cain
and twists it into this justification for exponential, almost unlimited vengeance. It's a terrifying escalation of the violence that started with Cain.
So this line has cities, culture, technology, but also runaway vengeance. It's a mixed bag, isn't it?
A very mixed bag. But just as you're absorbing that, the narrative shifts again. It goes back to Adam and Eve.
Okay, what happens there?
Adam and Eve have another son. She names him Seth.
Seth.
And Eve says something like, God has granted me another child in place of Abel since Cain killed him.
So Seth is positioned right away as a replacement, a gift from God to continue the line after the tragedy.
Yes. It feels like a new beginning, a line of hope, maybe. And Seth has a son, too, named Enosh.
And is there something significant about Enosh?
There is. The text adds this crucial little note. At that time, men began to call on the name of the Lord.
Ah. So in contrast to Cain's line building cities and boasting of vengeance.
In Seth's line, there's this turning towards God, the beginning of worship, of acknowledging the divine, it seems.
Okay, quite a contrast. Let's try and pull these threads together for you listening. What are the big takeaways from this chapter? It covers so much ground.
Well, right away, you've got that raw sibling rivalry, haven't you? And the devastating power of anger and jealousy. If they aren't dealt with, they aren't mastered.
Yeah, the consequences are stark. Actions have weight. Serious weight.
And then there's that huge question Cain throws out, am I my brother's keeper? It forces us to think about responsibility, connection, what we owe each other. Still wrestling with that one.
And you see these two paths emerging almost immediately from Adam and Eve's children.
Exactly. You got Cain's lineage pioneers of civilization, building cities, developing arts and technology.
It's also marked by banishment, violence, and this escalating pride and vengeance shown by Lamech.
And then you have Seth's line. It starts with God's provision, replacing Abel, and it's marked early on by people beginning to call on the name of the Lord.
A turning towards relationship with the divine rather than just human achievement and power.
It sets up this fundamental tension, between human potential for creativity and progress and our potential for terrible violence and alienation from God. And right alongside that, the possibility of seeking connection, of acknowledging something bigger than ourselves.
That tension feels, well, it feels incredibly current, doesn't it? How we handle anger, our responsibility, the kind of societies we build.
It really does. This ancient story, Genesis 4, lays out these fundamental human struggles and choices right at the dawn of human history outside Eden. And honestly, it feels like we're still navigating those same paths today.
So that wraps up our deep dive into Genesis chapter 4. We went from the first brothers, Cain and Abel, their offerings,
through the first murder, Cain's banishment, the mark, the unexpected founding of a city.
the development of crafts and culture in his line, but also that frightening boast of Lamech.
All contrasted with the birth of Seth, A new beginning and his line starting to call on God.
It really presents two fundamentally different ways forward, stemming from that first family.
It does. And maybe the thought to leave you with is this. The story shows these diverging paths, one marked by increasing human prowess mixed with violence, the other by turning towards the divine. What does that suggest about the impact of our core choices then and now on the world we create and our place within it? Which direction ultimately leads where? Something to think about.